Good morning from New Zealand. This morning's video, I'm going to address what to do when your child is showing, I think you call it regressive or deteriorating behavior. For instance, they started talking but they stopped talking. I am here to tell you I'm not a doctor and I'm not a professional, I'm not a neurologist or a psychiatrist. I'm a mum of an autistic child, but I have had experience with my child that I can share with you. And maybe your child has not got the same issues as mine, but I find with autistic kids, it's really important to talk to other parents because often things that behavior that your child is displaying, often it's a sign of them being distressed or being traumatized. I'm going to share with you the short story first of Matthew and how I went about finding out why Matthew's behavior was just going backwards, basically. Matthew was very calm at home. He was starting to use small words. He started talking more in sentences, small sentences, when he was 6. Between 5 and 6, he went to a special needs school. Like I spoke to you guys before about the difference between mainstream and special needs. In a special needs school, your child gets more help, gets more therapy. That's the upside. The downside is the transparency is not that good always because, and especially if your child's in a mainly non-verbal class, because if something was happening to your child, chances that a other child was going to say something is very slim, and you will have to trust your gut feeling and do trust your gut feeling. Matthew started his first school experience in a special needs school, and he was not happy there, the first school that he went to after kindergarten. Kindergarten was the same thing. He went to 3 kindergartens before I actually found one that was willing to work with him and was not just trying to change him from being autistic to not being autistic. We all know how that works out. So I decided after interviews at a lot of mainstream schools, understanding they did not really want to take Matthew and they did not have the staff or the resources to help him. I understood that and I did enroll him in a special needs school. This special needs school had satellite classes, and he first went to a really, I would say, frail care facility where there was children with cerebral palsy, deaf children, being autistic and deaf, with really a lot of things besides autism. So in this class, he was getting hardly ever time to play outside. It was basically two big classrooms, and it was like Fort Knox. If I had to go fetch him in the afternoon, I would come there and I would have to go through these double glass doors. You should see it. It's like thicker than a bank safe, and different doors, different places. I mean, obviously, probably to keep these kids safe. But what I realized is it also keeps you out. So the chances of you walking in unannounced in the classroom was zero. So this is what I am giving you advice now. When you are looking for a school for your child, make sure it's a secure facility but transparent. So in other words, make sure other people will be able to see into the classroom and that your child is going to have some sort of contact with the outside world at some stage. So in Matthew's case, he wasn't there for long, a few days, and he didn't want to go anymore. He was screaming and crying and trying to hold on to me. He was fighting as if he's fighting for his life. And I was so upset, you guys. I was crying when I left him there every morning, and they kept on telling me it's just an adjusting phase. All the kids are like that. But as the time went on, this is the tips I want to give you. I was able, very for short periods of time, to go inside the classrooms and observe a little bit. And I could see by the way some of the teachers or teachers' aides were reacting and interacting with the other kids is that it's to some of them it's really just a job, and they don't see these kids as individuals and basically as humans. From what I understood, a lot of the kids had complaints at the school that the parents would say the kids started deteriorating. They used to speak and now they're not talking. It was the same with Matthew. He stopped talking. He started chewing on his clothes like it was horrible. He chewed his clothes. It was wet every day when I came home. He was very distressed. He was not happy. And I kept on trying to make this work for a few months. My advice to you is if something's not working out after a few weeks, take your child out of the school. That's what I eventually did because I went to the teacher, voiced my opinion. I went to the teacher's aide. I did say what's bothering me, their behavior towards the children, and I was just brushed off. And then they started making it sound like the problem is with my child. And that's the first red flag that goes up. If something is going on with your child and you you approach the teachers and you tell them what's bothering you and they tell you that your child's displaying this and this and this behavior, especially if your child did not display that behavior before, don't you believe it for 1 minute. You are your child's advocate, you are his voice. And I know my child. I know Matthew is an amazing kid and affectionate, friendly. So the way they were describing him as being stubborn and not cooperating, I knew that's not him. At home, he was absolutely helping out with chores. He was doing everything that was expected of him. So why they were having problems, I don't know. So he did come home with a few suspicious bruises, nothing too bad, but nevertheless, I voiced my concerns that he is deteriorating. My voice wasn't heard. You know what I did? I took my child out of the school. I went to the principal of the main school. I told her I'm not happy with these kids never having outside time. Like on occasion, they have there's no little piece of grass for them to even go out on. It's just those two classrooms. These are not animals. My exact words to her was, even at the zoo, the animals have a bit of pasture, a bit of space, a bit of play area. These kids have nothing. They are being treated as worse than animals. So I took him out of the school. And then I started looking for another school. I did find a satellite class of the same school. And by now, they probably knew that I am not to be messed with. I know and respect teachers, professionals, therapists, doctors, but my child is my main priority. And you should do the same for your child. And you know what? After he was home for a while, this previous class teacher said to me, the previous school that he was in, where I took him out, said to me, I must get him a teething ring. They tried to brew up all sorts of excuses why he was behaving, why he didn't want to be there. The fact is, they were not treating him right. And he could not say it because he's nonverbal. And that's it. That's when I realized, and this is my advice to you too, if your child isn't acting normal like they normally do and they start getting aggressive, don't you believe the lie that the teachers tells you your son needs to go on medication. Some kids do need medication, but don't make that your own. That is the first excuse they would come up with, is that your child is the problem. If you do not have the problems at home with your child that they have at school, or he starts having these behavior problem at school, the problem is most probably not with your child. They do take some time to adjust, but I could see it. With the next class, the next school I sent my son to, he was happier. He was more content. He was wanting to go and wanting to be there. And you know what? I kept his behavior under a magnifying glass. Every time there was something out of the ordinary happening, I would go to school. Of course, there was retaliation. Of course, it was tit for tat. And, then the next time I would hear, he's so stubborn, he's so this, he's so that. I absolutely just ignored that. Because I know the progress I've made with my son at home. I know the diagnosis, the grim diagnosis that he was given, and I know that he has changed everything. My son, the last time was about a year ago. he went to for another assessment. That's after the first diagnosis at a pediatric facility, and they've actually discharged him because he went from severe autistic to high functioning. My opinion, he's always been high functioning. It doesn't matter if your child is severe. They can, with your help and your support, it can change. It just takes time and patience. But point is, if something if something is going on with your child behavior wise, they stop talking, they're not eating properly, they're not sleeping properly, because that was the other sign. My son wasn't sleeping very well. Then you must start doing research. You become an investigator. You look at your child's behavior, and very important, you get yourself visuals. You can order them from some place. You can make your own visuals, and that's what I did. When I got the visuals, it worked out for me. My son could start showing me, I am sad, I am happy, I'm hungry, I'm not feeling well. And with the visuals, he could tell me which part of his body was sore or what happened. But point is, we need to help our children voice their opinion and voice what's going on in their lives. Until they have got that ability to speak, we need to read their behavior. We need to be very, very careful to not let teachers' opinions and excuses for your child's behavior that's deteriorating cause you to doubt your child. Chances are very much that something is happening at the school and it is distressing your child. Find out what it is. Leave no stone unturned. Thank you for listening. This is Autism Untouched.